Kia ora Aotearoa. Welcome whānau to the War on News, your weekly secret council on assault on current affairs, being live from the palatial Stratus news bunker, very deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. If this show was a historically incorrect beer advert written by DB Breweries, it would pretend that the struggle for universal suffrage was really about women being able to drink topless, nuclear-free policy was really about blocking Budweiser sales, and the creation of the welfare state was to enable Māori salu mothers to drink more. And tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone. Won't somebody think about the children? Because Paula Bennett isn't. Double dip recession on the horizon. Has John Key finally run out of prescription optimism? Mainstream media make Benny bashing as predictable as outrage over a soccer team winning a sport award in a nationalistic rugby crazed little brother syndrome country. Plus this week's Sex in the Super City, Wanko of the Week, and the Barack Obama People's Hair of the Week award. Leading the war on news this week, brothers and sisters, you know it's radio ratings time when Redneck Talk hate host Michael Laws has come out this week and just remembered that he hates disabled athletes. The banjo-twanging provincial former mayor who gives banjo-twanging provincial former mayors a bad name has added disabled athletes to a host of minorities he has vomited venom on, including Māori, the Governor-General, and children who die on quad bikes. Why Michael has decided he suddenly hates disabled athletes isn't quite clear. He criticised the eligibility of Paralympians for the Halberg Sports Awards by stating, if you've had your legs chopped off, you shouldn't be in there at all. We're all breathlessly waiting for Michael to finish kicking disabled athletes while they've fallen out of their wheelchairs so he can start attacking other deserving targets like the blind, the deaf, and those with polio. Radio Live claims no one complained about Michael Law's wide-ranging verbal assault on the disabled. That's because most New Zealanders would prefer to listen to kittens in a blender than tune into Michael's boring, shrill, ignorant redneck hatred. Brothers and sisters, Agricultural Minister David Carter made an extraordinary statement last week when defending Fonterra from the latest Greenpeace protest against importing rainforest-destroying palm kernel by claiming that palm kernel was not actually linked in any way, shape or form with deforestation. This is an extraordinary statement to make, brothers and sisters, because palm kernel can only be made once the forest is cut down. Claiming palm kernel is not linked to deforestation is like claiming unprotected sex is not linked to pregnancy. Agricultural Minister David Carter then went on to claim that palm kernel was, and I quote, the saviour of farming in New Zealand, in the same way palm kernel is the executioner of orangutans in Indonesia. Brothers and sisters, we are deforesting Indonesia by importing palm kernel, and Agricultural Minister David Carter is lying through his teeth to protect Fonterra. At the very least, they should market their milk as global warming flavoured with extra orangutan. The taste of corporate greenwash hypocrisy. Yum. Brothers and sisters, Burger King have decided to give one of their workers a final warning after she posted on her Facebook page that real jobs don't underpay and overwork people like BK does. A spokesperson for the King sidestepped any debate regarding their tyrannical abuse of corporate power by limiting freedom of speech by claiming this tyrannical abuse of corporate power by limiting freedom of speech wasn't their only issue with the staff member, which in turn justified their tyrannical abuse of corporate power by limiting freedom of speech. When the King isn't selling delicious, fat-drenched, heart-clogging junk food, he's advising other like-minded authoritarian regimes like Egypt, Tunisia, Yemen, and China on how to block Facebook. To the headlines, whānau. Brothers and sisters, when John Key wasn't boasting about cutting more public service jobs and promising deep welfare cuts, He was claiming a newfound commitment to improving the lives of the most vulnerable children in New Zealand, which is odd because by forcing mothers to find 15 hours paid work each week or else, those very same vulnerable children John Key professes to care about will in fact be worse off if mum can't find work in a 6.8% unemployment environment. The 220,000 vulnerable children living in a benefit-reliant household aren't going to be better off if their parents' benefits are conditional on finding work when there is no work to find. If John Key and Paula Bennett really cared about vulnerable children, they would lift the benefit amounts and the minimum wage. All stick and no carrot makes little Johnny a prison statistic. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. The Finance Minister, Bill English, now admits that there might be a double-dip recession. Apparently that turbo charge from the GST tax raise actually imploded into a supernova clusterfuck of economic doom. How utterly unpredictable. In December, the Westpac chief economist, Brendan O'Donovan, claimed that personally, I think New Zealand could have a rip snorter of a year, and I think we could be on the cusp of a golden decade in terms of economic prosperity. In December, we were on the cusp of a golden decade. February, it's a double-dip recession. You get the feeling the technocrats have utterly underestimated the size of this economic tsunami we are all collectively facing. What we saw from this great recession was the US Fed, the European Central Bank, the Bank of China, the Bank of England, the Swiss and the Swedes all cut their rates by 50 points on Tuesday the 7th of October 2008. The magnitude of what happened from writing up $1 quadrillion in rigged derivatives markets demanded that united global response to claim that we are now on a cusp after that type of desperate cooperation misses what happened and what's left to come by such a spectacular amount, I feel the need to urge Westpac to piss test their chief economist. And the radioactive afterglow of this free market theory meltdown, our multi-millionaire Optimus Prime wants to sell off half our assets for a debt bogeyman using mum and dad investors as a justification, and we're going to let him because the beans he swapped our assets for are magic beans. All I can envisage at the press conference is John Key answering every question about privatising our state assets with the monorail, monorail, monorail mantra from The Simpsons. Cutting public services with austerity measures in a recession this deep with no insulation to the community is not a recipe for societal success, brothers and sisters. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. The story of beneficiary Peter Freedom travelling the world while on the dole is just another predictable story from the media acting as the propaganda arm of Paula Bennett to justify vast welfare cuts. A dirty, filthy Benny bludges the dole. Shock! Horror! Scream! Blah, blah, blah. All that fuss about the 1% worst case example blocks out and smokescreens the reality for the 99% who desperately need that support. While focusing on the extreme, the mainstream media obscure the other 658 beneficiaries who've had their benefit cut and the 1,000 who've had their benefit halved. The media did the exact same thing in January when they dutifully carried Paula's last press release showing white supremacist Daryl Harris had been denied a benefit. Brothers and sisters, a white supremacist gang member claiming welfare and a beneficiary who toured the planet on the dole are probably the greatest gifts to Paula Bennett since Glasson's leopard print mega sale. This government have a policy of blaming welfare while ignoring poverty and inequality. Daryl Harris and Peter Freedom are anomalies. Why doesn't the media look at the $16 million stolen by social welfare staff in the last 5 years, or the $454 million the Ministry of Social Development overpaid by mistakes last year? Oh no, we don't look at the millions stolen by staff and the almost $500 million blown by the ministry's own incompetence. Oh no. The chump change stolen by the dirty, filthy bludgers is the story, and it justifies slashing all benefits. Using examples as extreme as Daryl Harris and Peter Freedom to justify cuts aimed at society's most vulnerable is an easy way to avoid criticism. It is sad our mainstream media play along rather than challenge. Whānau, are you feeling sexy? It's Sex in the Super City time. sisters, how the hell is this ridiculous Māori statutory board appointments fiasco Len Brown's fault? It is Rodney Hyde's legislation. Rodney Hyde was the one who threatened to bring down the government if Māori were allowed elected representation. Rodney Hyde was the one who green-lighted 38 unelected Māori onto 19 committees, and Rodney Hyde was the one who rammed this entire mess through under a misuse of urgency minus any real scrutiny. Why are the mainstream media following right-wing pretty boy Cameron Brewer's spin line that this is somehow Len's fault? Right-wing pretty boy Brewer isn't representing Auckland, he's representing Wellington. Blaming Len Brown for the $3.4 million cost of the Māori statutory board is like blaming Poland for World War II. This is Rodney Hyde's fiasco, not Len Brown's. Len, it's not your fault, mate. Seriously, Len, it's not your fault. Listen to me, Len, it's not your fault, okay? It's not your fault. Whānau, let's hand out this week's Wanko of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Wank of the Week has to go to the jaw-droppingly sexist blokedom of New Zealand. Starting with The Rock and their tastelessly unfunny win-a-wife competition that would border on sex trafficking if The Rock wasn't so stingy and actually paid for the socio-economically impoverished bride to be flown back to New Zealand. The hope is that the Rock win-a-wife campaign is one big hoax for radio ratings week as the Endless Love document from the Rock's website right-clicks a details tab giving the origins of the file as a female employee of MediaWorks, which was created on the 9th of February. If it's just jokes to wind up the feminists for a laugh, it's more banal than downright evil. And in New Zealand, women have gotten used to choosing between the two. For suggesting New Zealand males were chauvinist pigs, Anna Faris was told by Tourism New Zealand that she was an unreliable stoner, while our Prime Minister gives MILF reports on a radio show hosted by the poster boy for back-breaking domestic violence. Gosh, our sisters, mothers, daughters, aunties, girlfriends, wives, cousins, friends put up with a lot of shit, eh? Let's end the show by handing out this week's Barack Obama People's Ear of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Barack Obama People's Ear of the Week award has to go to the media's sudden fears that the people of Egypt might elect a Muslim government. Who cares? That's not our right to choose. It's the people of Egypt who get to decide that. And if there is a radicalisation, the West, through their 30-year dictatorship, helped make that radicalisation. So perhaps the lesson is to stop propping these dictatorships up and turn that military aid into actual aid. That's it for tonight, folks. Don't forget my new show, Citizen A, plays Thursday, 7 p.m. on Triangle and replays on Strata, Sky 89 and Freeview 21 at 8 p.m. on Sundays. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter account and Citizen Bomber Facebook site. It has all the shows posted up online and allows you to befriend other like-minded citizens for romantic news moments. Good night, New Zealand. You stay classy, Aotearoa. Righto.